Alongside all of the Zendikar hype, WOTC decided to whip up the frenzy even further by giving us a full glimpse at next year's main set lineup. Along with surprise inclusions, there were also some notable absences, and a few hints at product styles that could change the way we consume Magic. So what flavour are we most excited about, and what clues can we garner for Magic in 2021? Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things Magic flavour design and lore. I'm your host, Andy Mann.
Hello, this is Nathan Cancel.
And we are going to be having a bit of a looser one today. We're going to be having a little look at the sets for next year, all the different products that got spoiled, which we haven't been able to talk about yet. And we're also going to be chatting about some of the web fiction that's come out since we last spoke. It's all looking pretty good. Like, I don't know how much preamble we can really do about this. Like, it's good. I'm enjoying it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of exciting things on the horizon.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into all of that, though, there is just one card. I know we spoke about all of our hype things from Zendikar last week, so I'm not going to go those too much again. But there's one card that's come out of the pre-con decks, which is a Zendikar card, but it's only been included in pre-cons. And I just want to talk about it for a quick second. Have you seen the artwork for Victor Adame Mingus's Enigma Thief, which is the Sphinx that he's drawn?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Yeah, this is a Sphinx, which is a rogue creature type, because rogues are relevant. And he's given the Sphinx, like, a face mask, like a robber's mask, like a rogue face covering. But it's still just a giant fucking Sphinx stealing an artifact from a Skyclave. I just think that's hilarious.
Yeah, no, I think it's very cool. I like the fact that we managed to get Prowl on a it's exactly. It's not going to be like, oh, I wonder if it was that a goblin or was it an elf?
Yeah.
It's like,
no, who did it? Like, yeah. And loads of people brought this up, right? It's not just me being like pedantic or anything. And loads of people have like tweeted at him on his personal, like when he did the reveal for, oh, this is my artwork. Zach Stella was the AD for the pre-cons, whatever. And loads of people have gone, you've put a balaclava on a Sphinx. And he went, yeah, I know, it's fucking stupid, isn't it? Like, he's in on the joke. He was like, I thought it'd be funny to make the least, sort of like, the most sort of obvious creature type on Zendikar, try and make them somehow covert. And I just thought that was funny. And it's like, yeah, great. Like, I really like Victor Mingus. He's funny.
It's like when Superman just puts on a pair of glasses and everyone's like, oh no, who's that? I guess that's Clark Kent now. It's like, imagine just like going up to like the Sphinx Roost and because he's a Sphinx Rogue as well, which one I think maybe the only Sphinx Rogue that's out there. Imagine going up to all the Sphinx and be like, so one of your guys came and stole one of the objects, and they all just immediately just pointing to the one guy in the corner looking all sneaky grinning, going, you know?
But Sphinx don't have pockets. Like, where's he going to put the mask?
What's he doing exactly? Yeah, I don't know. No idea.
Lots of social distancing jokes as well, being like, if a Sphinx rogue can put on a mask, you can put on a bloody mask too.
Right?
Yeah.
Amazing. Fantastic.
Cool. Well, I just wanted to talk about that. I thought that was just pretty funny. I mean, all of the spoilers since we last spoke, because I think we didn't jump the gun, but I think we needed to talk about like all the spoilers and all the stuff we were hyped for. We're still getting cards through, and yeah, like the quality has just remained. I think like Zendikar is going to be an awesome set. I really like the flavor on a lot of these cards, and yeah, the pre-con decks look pretty cool as well.
The note about the pre-cons is two of the most interesting cards, being the Landfall Goad creature and the Landfall. I'm going to say call it repository, of where you put permanents of 3 or less from your graveyard underneath it, and then when it does. Annoyingly, those are two cards. I was like, oh, those are awesome. I'm so glad they're in the set. Oh no, that's the Commander pre-con only.
I mean, this is what happened with C20, isn't it? Like, people getting really excited for like the Netherborn altar and all that kind of stuff. And like, oh no, it's just in the pre-cons.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of buying a single out of a pack that I know someone else has gone and opened specifically to harvest for singles.
I think the chip sailed on that one. I think we've all done that.
Yeah, no, it's not going to change my opinion on getting one or not, but it does feel a little bit irksome when it's only 3 cards out of the entire, set. I mean, don't get me wrong, I haven't looked at the full deck list, so there might be other cards in there that are worth harvesting, but yeah, it's an interesting.
There are arcane signets in them.
Oh, okay. Well, that changes my tune immediately.
Yes. The Command Zone podcast did they did the reveal for the Anawan Rune Sage pre-con, and they worked out that it was like $100 worth of reprints because because I mean, like the C20 pre-cons and all like the mainline Commander products, obviously a lot of their slots are taken up with actual new cards, so their reprint value is inherently lower. But yeah, like the yeah, these ones are no slouch. Like as far as reprints go, they've got some couple
Okay,
of good
cool.
ones.
I'll have to have a little look. I know that the Rogue list has been given a bit of accolade. Like people saying, "Oh, it's actually pretty close to what they'd want from a Rogue one." I guess if they can do this and make 2 serviceable decks instead of trying to do 4 and stretching out, as you say, a bunch of new cards into it and new mechanics that could potentially break the entire format in half, that might be a better way to go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So the web fiction, last week we had the first episode, and then the second episode got released as we were kind of recording, and then they also did a side story as well. So this is something I didn't really realize until this week, is that it's not all one thing. There's a main story arc, and then there's a side story arc, because they hadn't quite updated the website by the time that I went on there to start looking at the stories. So you have Miguel Lopez is doing the side stories, or at least he's done the 2 opening ones, which are themselves like a little arc. And then A.T. Greenblatt is the author that's doing the main storyline. And yeah, so I think this is a really cool way to go about it. Christ, I'm almost sick of talking about them, but the Nikki Drayden Ravnica stories, right, that kind of accompanied Ravnica Allegiance and Guilds of Ravnica, they were some of the best web fiction I think we've had pretty much ever. Like, I think, everyone can dispute that and have their own favorites, but I think those are really, really clever. What they suffered from, and I think this is what we've kind of come to as a conclusion, is that because they weren't the main storyline, and because they weren't focusing on the main characters at a time where everyone was so ravenous to find out what the fuck was going to happen in War of the Spark, that was their kind of big letdown, was people like, these are awesome, but we've got 10 of them, we've got 10 weeks of this, and we still haven't gotten any close to the main story. So to do these kind of side quests with legendary creatures which can't necessarily fit into the main narrative, and to do a main storyline, seems like a really clean new way to do it. And also 2 web fiction stories a week, fuck yes, thank you. Put it into my veins,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the idea is that obviously they're going to call of the main story like episode 1, episode 2, and then they're going to have little vignettes. I kind of, don't get me wrong, we'll get onto this a little bit anyway, but if Lopez does do all of the other side stories, I'd be very happy, because I think his style is really good. But I do like the fact they do have this in tandem, running alongside each other, the main story arc, which is a little bit more digestible in terms of vocabulary and everything, and then the other one which is a bit more indulgent, that you don't actually have to. It's almost like, if you want to know what's going on in the actual set, fantastic. If you want to learn about the legendary creatures and everything, here's this bit. And we want both, obviously, as Vorthosians. And if anything to expand our worldview and world building is not only wanted but desperately needed. And I think had they done the little vignettes for the War of the Spark alongside that story already being available, I think that would have been fine because it's supplementary. What it did is it kind of replaced it, pushed it back, and then when the expectation for the story failed to deliver, that was where the disappointment came. Whereas if they'd done both at the same time, I don't necessarily think it would have been quite as bad. I think the problem with the War of Spark books, especially Forsaken, was there was this big build up for a result that was severely lacking. Whereas with this, I don't know. I don't think even if the story arc and overall as a book, if it was written as a book, would be not subpar, but not exactly what we wanted. At least we're getting it in bits and bobs. At least we're kind of going along with the story bit by bit anyway. And also, one thing that's great about this is doing it web fiction is that any little thing like spelling errors, anything where they've maybe syntax a little bit wrong, or even, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit, changes that they might make based on audience reaction, they can edit it a day or 2 afterwards and have it still have its integrity. Whereas once you do a 40,000 book print run, you're kind of stuck misspelling Ujatai, aren't you? So that, I think, is a really important aspect of it as well, because it allows you to polish up some sloppiness that might happen. If the only thing I will say about 2 a week is it does feel slightly as if they're kind of not overcompensating, but it does feel touch not rushed. Rush is the wrong word, but I think it's because the timing for the second, the vignette episodes aren't necessarily set in stone. It's a little harder to be like, wait, when is this coming out? Well, when did it come out in the morning? When last week it was in the evening?
Yeah. The idea, I guess, is that they're trying to release the main set stories on the Wednesday, and on the Friday it's the little vignette side stories, as you say. But yeah, the one for this week came out, we're recording Friday now. It's Friday the 11th of September now, and that story came out yesterday, which in my head I initially went, oh, well, time zones. I went, oh no, because the US is behind us. So what?
It's bizarre because I think they release obviously in the mornings, or Wizards, whatever does in the mornings, and then obviously in England we end up getting it at mid-afternoon, which is quite nice because it's usually once you've finished work if you're a typical 9-to-5er, as opposed to getting it when you get into work in the morning, doing the Reddit thing instead of doing your work. But no one does that, right?
Um, but yeah, just we'll go just to kind of touch on a few of the characters and stuff. Spoilers if you haven't read these yet. This is where you turn off, go read them, then come back. So the side stories, the first two by Miguel Lopez, you have Red Root and Steps of Magosi. So they're really throwing you in with like the sort of locations of Zendikar. Like if you're I'm going to consider myself for all intents and purposes a newbie to Zendikar. I'm not, but because I'm not hugely invested in it, I think it's one of the planes that I've gone, yeah, I know some of the locations, but whatever, I'm interested in other planes. So I consider myself something of a newbie. So to be kind of thrown into a lot of these locations and a lot of this lore is actually quite nice. Like you have to catch up, and they do a good job of sort of explaining what all these locations are and all this, that, and the other, but they don't spend, paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of exposition as to why there are merfolk and core and humans who are friends. But, but there are vampires. Where are the vampires? Like, they just tell you it as it is. So, yeah, Miguel Lopez, I think, is a very good writer and seems to have a very good grip on Zendikar as a story. There seems to be a few soft retcons, which I wonder if maybe that's something which is the writer was miscommunication or something that's done on purpose. So, for example, a lot of people who are whinging about the stories, which, I mean, I don't have enough. We're only trying to keep this under an hour. I've got an hour to whinge about whingers, if I'm honest with you. But the people who are less happy with these stories, I think the things they're less happy about are the royal seems to have been retconned, like what caused the royal, because in the stories they keep being this thing where all the characters are going, but we defeated the Eldrazi, why is there still the royal going on? Well, I suppose the royal is part of Zendikar itself. And it's like, yeah, we fucking knew that from like the first time we went to Zendikar. That was never a question, was it?
No,
so there's little things like that, right? Which, yes, fine, whatever. But for the most part, it's great. So Magosi Steps and Red Root, which are the first two side stories, focus on Akiri and Zareth, who, if you remember, if you listened to me last week, I was pissed because the trailer revealed that Zareth, as for all we know, is dead, because in the trailer he gets killed by an elemental, and Akiri gets pushed off of a Skyclave platform by Nahiri and seems to be dead, although that's obviously like up for debate and will be a reveal, no doubt, that she's not. And now we're picking up their story like from before that time. I didn't actually get too weirded out by it when I read it. It wasn't ruined for me too much. I still kind of think it was an odd choice to do, though.
I think the odd choice about it is that we're not only got the end of Zareth's story in the trailer, but we're also getting the beginning, or like we're getting his current story before the beginning of this little journey and arc in the main episodes, and then also in the vignette we're getting a preface of him before he even met Nahiri in episode 2. So we've got kind of 3 versions and timelines of Zareth already. The version where we already know that he's kind of dead, if the trailer follows canonically, which I think it will. We've got the bit where he is kind of in real time as we're going through with, Nahiri and looking at her journey to
because they're now, the main stories have now caught up with Akiri and Zareth, where they weren't in the main story, the first one. The second one, they are now there. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, so we've now got him in real time. And
then we've also got the vignette of what Akiri and Zareth were doing in the build-up to having this adventuring party that Nahiri meets in episode 2. So we've kind of got this is what happens at the end. So we've almost got this is the end of the film, and then the rest of the film's a flashback. But also, we've also got a flashback before the flashback. And at that point, that's obviously storytelling 101. You don't do that because it gets very confusing for the audiences. Saying that, when I first saw this, what I liked the idea is that you get a comment of what Zareth and Akiri's relationship is like now in the current day as they're meeting Nahiri, which is a little bit more affectionate, and then you see the vignette, them almost building up to having this connection and almost understanding it. And you don't have to do it within the own story. You can kind of give it its own. And don't get me wrong, the different writing styles between Greenblatt and Lopez. One of them is very much more indulgent and verbose, so they can get away with having these little moments. There's kind of almost exploring their characterization more, whereas with the other one it's kind of we don't have time to talk about Zareth and Akiri, they're just the psychic. This is Nahiri story, so it's kind of nice that we got a version of their story from their point of view to kind of fill in the gaps and build up their character without it taking up space from the main arc. So I can kind of get that work. That works for me, even if it can be a bit jarring, especially when the voices that the authors are using can be quite different, because then if you do what we're doing and jump between the two of them, sometimes they don't quite add up. There's a little bit of inconsistency, and you kind of have to choose in your head what canonically you're kind of going, actually this is how I see Zareth, and maybe you know, you kind of have to fumble a little bit in between the two of them. But I mean, beyond that, I think it was a clever idea because it gives you, scope from past, present, and future. So.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I read all the stories pretty much back to back yesterday, and I read the 2 side stories first, and then I went to episode 2 of the main story, and it did jump a little bit for me as well, where I went, oh, okay, like the writing style has made these characters actually seem quite a bit different, and they're in a very different place in the main story than where they were in the side stories, like emotionally and their relationships to each other. But you know, like, fuck, like, I'm an adult, you're an adult, most adults reading this. Has anyone like read a narrative before? Like, it happens, so just kind of deal with it.
Exactly.
Like, I know that seems to be my go-to for a lot of people's complaints is, just deal with it. But when you have 90% of like, oh my god, this is brilliant, and they brought it back, and there are little things which are niggly, but isn't it a net positive? Yeah. I have zero time to think about all those things when it's not even fully out. Once they're all out, and you can look at them all and be like, oh, they really never did sync that up correctly, did they? Then fine. But we're 2 stories into each one. I think, are they meant to be 8? Is it 8 stories of each one?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I'm not sure if we're going to get 4 vignettes of different groups or not. I assume we probably shall.
Yes.
Because I know this was the Miguel Lopez was just a 2-parter, but it might be he will do then another, say, 2-parter following another character or something.
I think that's it. I think they're using those to explore other legendaries.
I think 8 sounds about right, because that's what, 2 months, which is about right.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. So I just kind of think, not only do I think it's too early to judge any of it based just on what we've got, but also I think when we've been speaking about fandoms in recent episodes, like when we did the deck tech for Cosmic Horror, and we spoke about taking responsibility for your fandom, I think that extends to many different things, and I think it's interesting when I sort of see people like sort of talk about Magic and talk about being a fan of the game or a fan of the story or whatever, and we're coming out of a very dark time for Magic in terms of its story, in terms of literally it was the blurst of times. But like, you know, the story was mishandled just as a product. It was mishandled in the narrative, and even like the company itself is coming out of a dark time.
The way it was presented, pretty much
everything about it. Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of tension, and there's a lot of people trying to pin hopes on stories, or there's a lot of people that have already kind of thrown their towel in with it and been like, oh, I don't like it anymore. But they're still the same people who are commenting about how much they don't like it. And I think there's a difference between critical thought about a product which you're invested in, or just trying to be contrarian. And I mean, you know, it's no surprise that the internet is just, you know, what's the word? Jaded, like is jaded and contrarian by its very nature. I'm not like exactly breaking new ground by stating that, but I just sort of think there is so much good in these stories, which we didn't even know we were going to get 2 weeks ago. They only announced they were going to do the web fiction 2 weeks ago, and we've got 4 really good stories in a very nice new way with cool characters like Zareth and Akiri. Like, we didn't really know much about Akiri beforehand. Zareth's fucking cool. Akiri's fucking cool. I'm liking the other 2 adventurers, Oran and Kaza, that's it. Yeah. Who's the blue-red legendary from
yeah, we got our legendary party. Having story that actually directly relates to cards within the set, and you go, oh, I know that character, and oh, I know that character, and oh, I know that monster. Because I got about halfway through episode 4, and I was like, is this I swear there's a big snaky thingy. And I went into the spawn, and I was like, it is the big snaky thingy. And then, like that is nice, because it is essentially creating a homogenization between the story and the cards, which is one thing that we really kind of complained about, was there was a lack of association, and there was a big difference and void between what we were reading on the cards and what we were reading in the fiction, especially in a set with Ikoria, for example, which otherwise I don't think the set or the story individually had any issues, but there was a massive problem between the synchronicity of the 2 of them. But you bring up a good point, because I know that we've had a long time to be complaining about the state of the story, and then it's very easy to complain about not having anything, because you don't have anything to complain about other than having nothing to complain about. But then once you get used to this kind of this process of always being critical, for me, there are lots of little bits and pieces that we could, you know, spend time pointing out and going through analysis of, but and that other people have done so. But I kind of didn't even, apart from the occasional spelling mistake, I didn't notice the things that on a second read I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe. Because I was just so happy to have web fiction back again. And these people won't necessarily have a solution to the thing or an alternative. and they won't even, as you say, recognize the fact that it's just nice to have them back again. At least be happy you have got something to criticize. If that's your big thing, you like being critical and you like having, an intellectual opinion about things, and maybe you're like a natural editor of where everything you see, you have to process, break down why you did and why you didn't like it. But that's not, you're not being positive in your reaction to it. You're not going,
Yeah.
okay, maybe they could do this in the future. They go, well, they did this wrong. They did this wrong. It's like,
Yeah.
right, mate, do you want to write? You've had all the time in the world to write fan fiction. What have you been doing?
Yeah, it's not constructive criticism.
So
And I kind of think like
it's not, no.
we could be accused of just kind of, liking what we get, the scraps of what should be a much bigger thing. But I just kind of think, just from a mentality point of view, and just from a positive fandom point of view, if you go on your Discord, or if you go on your Twitter or your Reddit or whatever social media you use, if you look at the last 4 things you spoke about a subject, if within those 4 things, if you're talking about the story or the cards or whatever, if not one of them has anything positive to say, even if it's a positive for a criticism, like, I really didn't like this, I think you should do more of this thing that I liked, then I think you just need to reassess how you're engaging with the game, because it's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for everyone else who's trying to enjoy it. And, we've just been through 2 and a bit years of finding really fucking struggling to find something to be positive about. So when there is stuff to be positive about, shout about it, because then WOTC will hear and they'll go, oh, they hated it when we completely screwed up all their characters, but they loved it when we did all the Zendikar stories with like a fresh take. Then they'll take that away.
Yeah.
And,
like,
that's
this is the closest I think you can get to Vorthos fan service. I mean, obviously, if they're writing stories, Vorthos would be happy anyway. But it was little things, like they even said at the bottom of like the second Jace story about how this isn't the Jace from before Ixalan. This is the Jace from after Ixalan. Obviously, not in those words. They did it in a slightly more poetic fashion. But the whole point is that they're almost going, guys, we're listening. Don't worry, we're trying to even push the writers to put specific excerpts of what we're trying to explain to you, of like, don't worry, we're not going to kill off Jace's character. He is still this, he has had this development. We're going to maintain this development. And it's almost like this feels almost like the perfect apology to the people that have been complaining for so long about the story, but not complaining, but say have been a bit brokenhearted about it. Not the ones that are kind of going depressed and they're sitting and eating some ice cream. They're not going out and causing a hubbub about it. They're just sitting at home being like, well, the world used to be a brighter place, and they're kind of going, no, don't worry, open up the blinds, the sun's come back out again a little bit. Don't worry, the weather's getting better.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Again, we're really good at complaining about people complaining, but I mean, it's one of these things. We're only 4 episodes in, and obviously there are, as I say, there are loads of critical responses back to it about individual stories and the writing styles and everything. But in general, for people like us, it's really interesting and engaging to be able to have even this last story, the one about the Magosi, the Stairs and Magosi. Like, that was one of the best ways of giving characters really new some breadth, and then also giving a highlight on we very rarely get beasties. We very rarely, like the Gitrog monster episode from the Innistrad stories is one of the best ones, because it gave us insight from a very strange cosmic horror kind of point of view about a legendary creature that wasn't humanoid, that we couldn't necessarily understand. And that was amazing. And to be able to get like the diversity and show the world building from an antagonistic non-human point of view, as well as from the adventuring party point of view, I think is really important. Otherwise we don't have, as you say, this scale to Zendikar. You don't get to learn about it, you don't get to indulge in it, you don't get to enjoy it. And as much as there might be some aspect of retconning that I can understand, where people might be saying things like we don't see enough of the residual Eldrazi influence. I'm sorry, every single story is talking about what people have hurt and what people have lost. And no, maybe we won't see the landscape being like it, but when we complain for so much about the idea of how the Eldrazi were handled, and I can understand why there's an aspect of trying to put everything under the rug a little bit. It's almost like, okay, it's not that we're going to ignore it, it's just that we've got other stories to tell. Can we focus on that? 'Cause it's a bit hard to take a positive step forward when you've got one, when you're looking over your shoulder backwards as well. So, but in general, I think it's great. I think it's good to have this, and it's nice to be able to see characters interacting bit by bit, not as one big giant brawl across Ravnica.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a very good way of putting it. There is, you need to pay service to the things that have been behind you, but if your story is all about what's behind you, you don't actually advance the plot. So what do you want? I agree. Okay, so that's the web fiction. I'm looking forward to seeing more episodes, regardless of any kind of criticisms. I'm also not like super blown away by them. Like, it's not like I think it's the best fiction ever, but it's great and I'm enjoying it. So there we go.
Absolutely. I think we can do like a big breakdown of everything when we have the full scale to kind of look at, and we can look at the arcs and see everything going on. But yeah, so far so good. I wouldn't say no complaints because we've been complaining, but positive.
Well, yeah, we're total hypocrites, but I own it, so it's fine. Yeah. Cool. So this is now what we're going to talk about is all the reveals for next year, for all the sets that they spoiled rather self-indulgently, along with all of the Zendikar stuff to really screw us over and give ourselves a bit of a mind melt. We didn't talk about them last week, and we might have kind of missed the boat on the hype for a lot of this stuff, but I still think it's worth having a little look-see. So they did a graphic for their quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4 for next year, and all the sets that they are willing to reveal, because if WOTC are going down this road, then there's probably going to be another like sort of 7 or 8 different sets that we have yet to see.
There'll be a collection in there somewhere.
There'll be a collection.
There's no Commander product listed in here at all. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So it's got the mainline sets for their 4 quarters, and then they've got the 2 kind of big supplementary sets that are coming out as well, like the big draft sets. So they've released Kaldheim, Strixhaven, Dungeons and Dragons, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and then Innistrad, we're going back to Innistrad, Werewolves and Vampires, which are seemingly 2 different sets. We'll get onto that in a minute. And then the 2 supplementary sets are Time Spiral Remastered, which is pretty exciting, and Modern Horizons 2, which...
We've been waiting for years for that one, haven't we?
Jeez, that's going to be a big old dark cloud on that format. They're just going to be looking for like 3 months, for 8 months of the year, going, please don't screw it up, please don't screw it up.
Print another Astrolabe, please don't print another Astrolabe.
Yeah, fucking Hogak or whatever. But yeah, so let's just work through them then. So, Kaldheim. We finally got there.
Good God, we got there, right? Yeah.
Kaldheim is the set which... so for those of you that don't know, Kaldheim is a sort of Norse mythology, Viking-inspired set, taking a lot of its cues from like Swedish, Denmark, Norway, a lot of those kind of countries. I want to say the word Scandinavian, but I know that's wrong. Is it Scandinavian?
Yeah, Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark.
Yeah, because there is a distinction. It's like how when people say that Holland is the country, when it's the Netherlands and Holland is a region. Like, I don't know. I'm from the UK. I'm ignorant as shit about this kind of thing, even though it's technically in my consonant. Like, I don't know. But yeah, so it's based on Norse mythology. And this is a set which kind of got soft spoiled. I'd say like a year and a half, 2 years ago, like when Arena first came out, it kind of got soft spoiled because people saw a couple of like key art graphics, just the type line rather than the pictures. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's going to be programmed into Arena, which they were probably still right about. But they were like, this means it's going to be coming out this year, as in 2019. And it just didn't. And it was like, oh, okay. And it got referenced in the Ixalan stories. So Huatli and Angrath are fighting, and she has her first little blip away to... was it meant to be Ravnica that she went away to, or it was Kaladesh?
Kaladesh. She went to the Gold Spires, yeah.
Right.
So she blipped to Razka, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. So she blips away because of the nature of Ixalan. She comes back, and then when she goes on like another little trip, or is it who goes to Kaldheim? I'm misremembering this. Like,
I think no. I think it might be her as well. I can't remember now though.
Yeah, so because she does another little like sort of stretch out into the blind eternities, and she goes to this cold mountainous plane where she kind of sees these like Viking figures, and then she gets zipped back to Ixalan. So we already kind of saw a little taster of it. Kaldheim was also originally kind of explored on one of the plane chase cards.
Yeah, with Ramaz. And yes. Also, we also Ramaz. This was like years ago. This is like a good 5-6 years ago, though. The crazy Temur Planeswalker that Chandra was chasing around during one of her duels of the Planeswalker yearly releases.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been kind of floating around a lot of these different products, and it's a set that people have always wanted, especially with things like the popularity of things like Skyrim, for example. The Elder Scrolls 5 was kind of had this aesthetic with things like the Thor movies, obviously, like kind of push this, and even TV shows like Vikings, for example, or there's a new one on Netflix called Norseman. Like, so this is kind of a big fantasy trope which people are like really digging, and yeah, they're finally gonna do it. The set symbol's a bit basic. It's literally just an axe, which I don't know how I feel about.
It makes me feel like if Garrick isn't in this set, like how we sometimes say like, oh, it's got to be. Like, one of the funny things is talking through all of that, none of those sets were Phyrexia, obviously. So we're yet another year away from that, which, considering we're now talking about Kaldheim, which we've always been yet another year away from, I mean, it's quite amusing to think.
Phyrexia guaranteed 2021 then.
Yeah. Can we say that? And obviously it'll probably be 2023.
I don't think we're alone. everyone thought we were going to come to Phyrexia this year, and I was really, really shocked when I didn't see a Phyrexia symbol
I
on
think
here.
Kaldheim is a good replacement for that in terms of like, oh, okay, at least we're finally getting one of these things, you know. But yeah, if Derek isn't in this, I might throw my toys out the pram a little bit because I don't understand why he wouldn't be. But yeah, the axe, I do know what you mean. It's a little bit base. But I think it also might not try and give away too much. There's a good chance it doesn't have much of a non-independent story anyway. I think it'd be quite nice to have something that obviously links into characters we've seen before, but realistically doesn't actually have grand and open-ended, like, oh, we need to come back in a few years to solve the apocalypse kind of thing.
Sure. I mean, is Saskia and Yielding, is she from Kaldheim?
Well, we didn't know because she was a Gaul, wasn't she? Like the way we looked, I think we ended up figuring out the way she looked like more Gaulish, and that's Gall rather than
so like it's kind of like the French kind of barbarians as opposed to like.
So they might be a bit too southern, so I don't think she is.
But then I think didn't we say in an episode quite a long way away that I was we did this a long time ago actually when we thought Kaldheim was going to come out soonish. That I think there's a good chance they might do Kaldheim as kind of barbarian world. Right, so like Imistrum, for example, is another planar card where they have is kind of like the Valhalla sort of plane.
I think the plane is called Valor. I think it was
the plane is called Valor, and then the area is called Imistrum. So I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't kind of retcon that because the planar cards aren't necessarily super canon; they're just kind of like a testing ground. So I think if they merged that with Kaldheim to have like the kind of the Valhalla area of that plane, right? A little bit how they did sort of Nyx and Theros.
Yeah, well, we talked about recently about how we wouldn't mind seeing a civil war kind of plane of where it starts off instead of building up to a war, we kind of start in a great amazing war and it kind of peters down into normality rather than the other way around. Because building to a crescendo doesn't work in single block formatting sometimes, whereas starting in the heat of something and then kind of seeing that resolve over the course of the set, I think is quite a nice idea.
As far as like mechanics for Kaldheim go, I mean, I think
snow permanence probably.
Snow permanence will have to be a thing. Yeah, snow permanence will definitely have to be a thing.
Beyond that, I'd have to go back through all of like the all of everything again. But I imagine we might see gods in the similar fashion of devotion, but slightly different. Maybe they don't do it by color devotion. It might be say creature type devotion or something like that. I wouldn't mind seeing that because obviously a big thing of Norse mythology is Thor, Odin, all of these big god characters. So I could see that.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I think they'll bring them back. But
equipment.
Yeah, if they're maybe like equipped, or they'll definitely be bringing back like legendary, like how you had like Nylea's bow and Heliod's spear and that kind of thing. Yeah. They'll have like Thor's hammer, all that kind of stuff.
I think I'll just port the latest God of War into a Magic set and it'll be fine. That's it. That's all you need.
Well, I mean, it's, as far as things are going, like with other sets, that might not be too far off. Okay, so Kaldheim, pretty excited for that. Nice to see it finally here because it kind of gives hope to all those other planes that people are kind of definitely trying to pitch as we're going to. I suppose, a broken clock is right twice a day. If we keep saying every year Phyrexia, eventually we can go back.
Yeah, but it is nice to eventually tick off ones that we know are going to be on the horizon. I'm never more hyped to tick off things that I know are eventually coming because in my mind I know they're eventually coming. I'm usually get more hyped for things that are like new because I didn't expect them. But at the same time, Kaldheim was one that I'm being like, come on, just let me tick this box. It's been like half a decade. Let me tick the box, please. So yeah, sure. And the fact it's first in the year as well means that we don't have to wait until the end of the year, another like 15 months for it to happen.
Okay, so then next up we'll have the ancillary product Time Spiral Remastered, which is going to be a draft format where it's Time Spiral block. But it's like a remastered version of it, as the fucking name suggests. I don't know how to explain that bit. But yeah, there's going to be one card per pack that will be in the old pre-modern era card frame. So like as they were in like old school Magic. And like they're going to have like the purple set symbol for some like the promo artworks, and they're going to have the Wizards of the Coast like star flash in the corner for like the foils. So they're bringing back exactly how they looked. So a little bit similar to how they did in Mystery Boosters. Which is great.
That must be a bit annoying for them to have to do a whole different foiling process. That might mean that we guarantee a slightly better foiling process for the set, which would be great for an ancillary product instead of a regular drafting set. But
this is one of those times, like with this set, where I know it's marketed at players of Magic, which maybe even playing a lot longer than I have. Because I know you were playing for some of these sets, but I wouldn't necessarily call you an old school Magic player, like a 94, 95 Magic player.
No, I was only a babby during that time.
Yeah, you were like, 4 or 5 at the time. So so was I. So this is definitely a lot of fan service to those players that have been playing, and even if they are our age, that they were literally playing when they were like 6 or 7 getting into the game. But I also do feel like the kind of fetishism that's been surrounding a lot of these old border cards is maybe a bit too much. Like how, like we were saying, I mean, people can't win. We were saying earlier about how people whinge about stuff they're given, and now I'm about to whinge about how when people are given what they want, they're a bit too excited about it.
How dare you be happy? Have a mediocre response, you know?
I've just seen a lot of discourse of people going, "Is it going to be exactly the same?" It's like, well, no, probably not. But like, and like, it's still going to look the same. Come on. So yeah, but I think it's going to be cool. I don't really have many strong feelings about Time Spiral Remastered. Do you?
I think it's interesting. It's the first, because obviously the Amonkhet remastered for Arena. Obviously, it's the first remastered set for paper. The thing that is good is the fact that Time Spiral as a block was very divisive, because for the invested players, it was one of the best sets ever because it was super complicated. The block format was insanely slow and intricate. But for those that weren't already invested, they looked at the set and went, "So how many different mechanics are in?" And they don't even know what the word mechanic is in their vocabulary yet, because they literally just started playing. And they're like, "So how many different words do I need to learn? 87? Okay." So it didn't necessarily work so well, like from a play perspective. But this is the perfect way to do it. Drop it into an ancillary product, so you don't have to do it to keep up with the standard rotation. But it does give players that are like, as much as even like an expansion set isn't like it's not better than the core set, in terms of complicatedness. It is a way for them to go, let's live the old days, but do it in a way that, is not, it's
actually works.
Imagine having to go and buy a box of Time Spiral now, it'd be a fortune. So it's quite nice to be able to give another option. And also, this is probably the perfect set to do it, because it was a celebration of all of that era of Magic that came before. So it's almost like another generation gets its chance to enjoy old school Magic.
Yeah, which is really cool. I'm also, as like just aesthetically, I'm quite into the purple set symbol. I've got an Achroma Angel of Wrath from Time Spiral, and it is just that nice little bit of extra little aesthetic bling to go along with your deck.
I've got a fifth different type of rarity,
Yeah, it's cool. It's just visually, it's just quite nice. So yeah, I agree. More of that. Next up, we'll have another mainline set. This one's cool. Strixhaven. School of Mages is the kind of subheading for it. Strixhaven. We're getting oh god, I'm so sick of this joke, and I'm already really sick of this joke. It's the Harry Potter set.
No, I was going to say it. It's like we're going back to Hogwarts just in time for the 7th book to be written. Oh wait, no, that was 10 years ago.
I'm like, it's the same when people went that Eldraine was Shrek World. Like, I think maybe I'm the problem, Nathan. Like.
Maybe this has just been a long yearly process of us realizing that we need to take a step back and sort our lives out a little bit.
Well, it's by the 5th time I heard, it's like Shrek. I rolled my eyes so hard I had to go to the opticians the next day. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm already sick of Harry Potter. Like, it's not Harry Potter. Just enjoy it. Stop, because not everyone likes Harry Potter, so stop ruining it.
Yeah, especially considering its own author is doing a pretty good job of damning it. It's quite nice. It's had just enough time to have a bit of disassociation from that as well. The interesting thing is, where do you think this is?
Oh, what do you mean? Like what plane?
Yeah, because I've got a couple of ideas.
Do we not think it's its own little pocket dimension? Do we think this is on another plane?
That would be incredible. In which case, I think if that is true, if it's a place we haven't been before, or if it's something that's a little bit more obscure and Kasmina's not involved in it somehow, again, I'm going to throw my fucking toys out the pram, because I think she was said to be coming into a set coming up, and I don't think she'll be in Kaldheim. Don't think she's giving the Dungeons and Dragons. I'm pretty sure she's not going to be on Innistrad.
So yeah, Kasmina, for those who aren't aware of the character, because she's only appeared on one card of her own, and then she just appeared on another one. She was a character in War of the Spark. She was one of the 30-odd Planeswalkers that was in that set. She was one of the uncommon ones, one of the new Planeswalkers. And then she also had her own signature spell, which was Kasmina's Transmutation, I want to say.
Yeah, you didn't have to say it, but you got it right, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it was either Transmutation, Transformation, Transmographication, whatever. It's the Thanos Frog card, right? And in her own artwork, she's there looking all Planeswalkery. Fantastic art by Magali Villeneuve, of course. Nissa Cosplay also does a fucking rad cosplay of Kasmina, which we saw firsthand at London Magic Fest. Which is really cool.
I took the picture that she put up on her website.
Claim to fame. And she, in her signature spell, she's in the background, obviously doing the spell. Everyone focuses on the Thanos frog in the foreground because the frog looks really like the Grimace from those films. But she's also, the thing which I didn't notice at first and took me an embarrassingly long time to realize, is that her staff is like a bird's perch, right? Because in her own artwork, she doesn't have a bird perching on it. But then in the signature spell, you see there's this big sort of eagle-looking motherfucker that's kind of landing on it. And Strixhaven, Strixes, owls, Owl House.
Yeah, that familiar idea. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that she made wizards on her Planeswalker card,
Right.
which
And she's an enigmatic mentor, which means probably a teacher. Exactly. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like, there's enough things here. I'm like,
there's enough, right?
Yeah.
I also really, so the little lore tagline which they gave for this one was Strixhaven is the most elite university in the multiverse. It features 5 colleges which battle it out to. I can't read more than 10 words, mate. Which battle it out with their own take of magic. One sentence and I failed. It's early. So basically, it's a bunch of wizarding houses, one of each of the colors, and they're all trying to prove that their way of magic is best. I've obviously, when that got kind of released, I was like, well, what's going to be in each color? Is it going to be like just generic, like all of the red magics, or are they going to pick one? Because if Kasmina, the blue one, sorry, just to kind of get in my theory. So my worry was, say for the red school, that the red school is just going to be, some of them do burn magic and then other ones do lightning magic, and I want them to pick a lane and go down it. And then the blue school, which is Kasmina's school, because she's a blue mage, is all going to be like transmography and polymorphism, which I think is a really cool blue mechanic in Magic, which doesn't see enough play. So to get like a whole set where all of the blue cards are about changing your creatures into other things, I think that'd be wicked.
Okay, so my theory is that we're not doing the typical, because we've just done Eldraine with 5 courts having 5 colours. I think it will most likely be a not guilds aspect, but there will be an ally. I think it's going to be allied pairings or something like that. I reckon they're going to switch out. It's not just going to be individual, because this is what we were talking about last week about how it's nice that they're doing class diversity. And creature type diversity, because it means that your colours aren't shoehorned into specifically being all of the humans that are soldiers that do the +1/+1 and creature thing. Creating I think that will be interesting to see. Maybe transmography, but we have what is the 5 different colour takes on transmography? That seems to me to be more interesting. Much harder to do as a set. I'm not saying it's likely to do.
Yeah, I just.
Red and blue doing transmography, because of things like Chaos Warp and stuff like that, because a lot of red effects recently have started doing that as well. I could see them doing that. Obviously, Kasmina, her card came in a set where they had to chop some colors out of certain planeswalkers. Say Narset was mono blue, for example, and then they had to add extra colors to other ones to try and fill out the weighting of it, so each color had its right amount of planeswalkers and everything. Arlen Cord specifically only being mono green, which is wrong because she's red green.
Yeah.
That kind of idea. I think there's a chance that maybe she has an extra color, and it might not be as clear cut as say the courts were in Eldraine.
That's fair. I think that's a really good take. I'll be interested to see what they do. Yeah. To go back to your point about what plane it's on, I just assumed it was going to be its own pocket plane. But
I like that. I like
that's a big assumption.
Planes. I think pocket planes are a really cool idea, because you don't have to fit them into a massive big world building. You can kind of keep this. And also, but if it is a pocket plane, does that mean everyone there can travel from other multiverses? I mean, how does that work in terms of metaphysics? Unless they themselves, the school, got so potent that they had a big explosion and it kind of phased, kind of like with Zalfir and Teferi, but did it phase out the college into its own little pocket realm?
Well, it's the most elite university in the multiverse.
Yeah.
So why would they describe it as that?
God, because student fees must be extortionate.
Yeah, sure. but if Tolarian Academy could be like, we're the most fancy school. It's like, but what, compared to what? Like Carol Keep? Like
exactly. Also, Tolaria is nowhere near what it used to be, because this is the other thing I was going to say. It's really nice to have this school aspect, because we haven't seen this academia side of things. When also academia is a massive big thing at the moment in terms of, I know that the 2 biggest anime things is samurai and high school, and if you do high school samurai, you've ticked both boxes and everyone's going to love it, kind of thing. So we haven't had that since the Tolarian Academy back in the day. The only other place I can imagine it being, because we know that Kaya comes from a place of gentry almost. She comes from a noble background. I could imagine it being on Tolvadar, because Tolvadar kind of turning everyone a little bit because of what Nicol Bolas did to the sky and everything. I could imagine that also working within, Strixhaven somehow managed to stay away. But also I can't imagine it being on a plane that he's had influence on, because surely he'd have stamped it out or they'd have fought back or something. So
could it be on Vryn?
Oh, it could be. Oh, that I like, because then we get a little snippet of a plane that we'd like to see more of, that also might be a bit too boring to do a whole entire set on, that it's not focused on one thing in particular. That's interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that.
I think they'll fudge it and they'll do some pocket dimension where
Yeah.
it's like, but it'll be something like the magic they're using isn't making the individual students cross planes. It's just they're going to this other realm
Right,
that is
right.
kind of connected to
Oh,
all the other realms.
so we can
You
kind
know?
of get away with the whole, because I guess also, how can Kaya transport other things? I know that's her specific power, to be able to transport other people, but maybe that's also giving us a window into how, oh, we need to kind of softly push in this idea that it's not just planeswalkers that can travel, if it is in this, metaphysical pocket dimension.
I think it's like, imagine like when you're playing EDH and you're playing all in person, but because of COVID-19, we've all had to play on like spell table. I
Mm.
think like imagine if Strixhaven is like the spell table server. So we're all there, but we're all coming there via different means.
Yeah,
Like, we
it's
haven't
almost
had to
like,
travel.
like astral projection kind of thing, of where we're not actually there in
Sure.
person, we're kind of there but in spirit. Yeah,
Or
it's
like if the
interesting.
university itself exists simultaneously all over the multiverse.
Yeah, right.
So
That would make
you,
sense to be the most elite university in the multiverse. How would you
that's
know
what
unless
I'm saying.
you? Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. That's a good theory. I've only got one last thing to say. Yeah, and that's that this, so Strixhaven, Kaldheim, and Zendikar, the only real linking thing, obviously we don't do blocks anymore, is that these three sets will all have modal double-faced cards. So I think it's confirmed that the 4 lands, the pathway lands that we didn't see, because the Cinema, they do 6 of the dual lands, those 4 will be in Kaldheim, and yet also in Strixhaven we're going to have modal double-faced cards, which would be really interesting, like, because I can imagine for something like School of Mages, are you going to play it as the enchantment for the continual weaker effect, or do you play it for the sorcery for the bigger one-time effect? That kind of idea. So I
Yeah.
think maybe one of the things of why they've kind of softly with some of the double face cards, not all of them, some of the ones in Zendikar Rising are incredible, but they're not, say, as push as they could be, because I reckon obviously Kaldheim and then Strixhaven will explore that space more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Next up, we will have Dungeons and Dragons: Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. They've pulled the trigger. This is a black bordered mainline set that has no indication that it's going to be anything other than a fully fledged storyline set in the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, they've taken 28 years to make that happen. That's crazy.
That's mental. Like, what? Like,
Yeah.
when this got released, everyone's focusing on all like the kind of like, oh my god, Dungeons and Dragons, that's amazing, which is the right thing to do because it's really incredible. I just don't know how they're gonna do it. Like, it just seems bonkers. This is like an unset, right?
Right, yeah. I guess
That's
also one
crazy.
thing is, if it hasn't been something that's been done already, kind of why, and also if there is whys, then how is it now possible to do it? Like, what was the change? I mean, we also have to point out that this is taking the place of the core set. So there is a degree of, it won't necessarily have to have ramifications that deal outside of its own little individualism. Like, obviously, most core sets have some focus, so they focus on Teferi and then Mirkobolas and Shana, blah blah blah, to keep it still within the multiverse that we know. But I know that it is taking place on one second, Toril,
Yeah.
but it says the
Which is
planet Toril, so
yeah, yeah.
which might be a typo on the wiki instead of plain Toril. But so it does
Well,
have
no,
its
no,
own
because
kind of
the
way.
planet Toriel's like the Dungeons and Dragons
Oh, I
world,
suppose, yeah,
isn't
of
it?
course, right. So, so that's the thing. That's where the unset of it comes. Yeah, because are they taking the Magic IP and putting it into another IP, or are they bringing the Dungeons and Dragons IP into the Magic
Well,
IP?
I mean, because then in the Dungeons and Dragons continuity, the multiverse exists. Surely now, like,
Oh, obviously, yeah, because of Theros and because of Ravnica. Yeah, actually, yeah.
well,
And maybe this is.
no, like just I mean, because I think those are more like systems. They're just using the Dungeons and Dragons system to tell the stories of those planes. What I'm saying is that if we have like planeswalkers in the Forgotten Realms, then vice versa, the Forgotten Realms now has to acknowledge that there's the existence of the multiverse and
Mm,
planeswalkers.
maybe they don't put Planeswalkers in them. Maybe because I could see that. Imagine having a core set that doesn't have anything to do with Planeswalkers. I could see that happening, considering
Oh, sure.
if they do that, like that party mechanic thing that obviously we've had in Zendikar, and obviously seeing how that plays out, and I think even the excitement level of it, I think it clearly works diegetically as a mechanic. Um,
Mm.
Obviously, if that's they're going to be their main focus, and little skill arcs and that kind of thing, I can imagine them not doing anything that kind of pulls them into the main multiverse meta. I could see that happening, because then it keeps still an aspect of disassociation whilst also being a transferred, IP. I could see that quite
Sure.
easily.
I mean, I'm excited for it. I am very much a Dungeons and Dragons novice. Like, I've played Dungeons and Dragons. I'm in the middle of a campaign as we speak, actually, but it's kind of very sort of light because the dungeon master is aware that like the people playing aren't hugely invested in Dungeons and Dragons. Like this is kind of like my first campaign for a lot of people, and even someone like me who's been playing Magic for a long time and had experience with Dungeons and Dragons. Like I'm not all in on it, but I'm kind of up for it. Like what I want to see is I just want them to just own it a little bit and just to have things like have sorceries and instants that are literally just called Magic Missile or Eldritch Blast.
I think
just have the spells. Yeah, just have it.
So they're going to specifically have D&D characters in, like it says, they have D&D characters specifically in flavor text and stuff like that. So I think it is almost like a direct port of bringing D&D into the Magic realm rather than taking Magic as a multiverse and going, hey, let's go and visit Toril. I think it's going to be the other way around of how could we communicate the world of D&D in, because considering we own both products, how can we communicate a D&D campaign as a Magic set? Which I think is a fantastic thought experiment. And the fact that they're able to do it means that clearly it was a thought experiment that was worth doing. So
and
that's
they've had for a long time.
Yeah.
And also things like the party mechanic, which we're seeing in Zendikar, is clearly like a precursor. Like they've still got about a year to kind of tweak things if they feel they need to. I do hope that they'll have other classes be a bit more relevant other than just the warrior, cleric, wizard, and rogue. Because obviously you have things like druids and warlocks. You know, and obviously there are certain races which I don't know if they'll start doing like one-off races, like gargantuans. Do you know what I mean?
Do you do tiefling or do you put them put them as imps? You know, like that's the thing.
Or Azra. Do they have Azra instead?
That's clever because you could do Azras instead of tiefling. Yeah, but again, then are you not at that point? Are you transferring magic into Dungeons and Dragons when really they should be transferring Dungeons and Dragons into magic? But then would you create all of these? It wouldn't be very many of them, but would you create specifically a tiefling creature type to pay direct homage to the Dungeons and Dragons when you've already got an analog in the game? That's the question that I think is interesting to kind of debate, and I imagine they've obviously had to go back and
maybe they'll do this is I mean they won't, but this is like an interesting thought experiment. Maybe what they'll do is they'll do like a pre-errata. So they say we will have tieflings and gargantuans in this set. All tieflings are Azra. All gargantuans are ogres or
right. Like how they do with the hounds and the dogs and kind of thing.
Yeah, but do like a pre-one to be like just for this one set, this is what all these creature types are called. Going forwards, this is how they're going to interact with everything else. That'd be interesting. I don't know. I'm well up for it. We have so little information about it, and I can't wait to see more because it's kind of groundbreaking for Magic, especially in the modern era. After that, because we haven't got much time left, I just want to very quickly touch on Modern Masters 2.
Modern Horizons.
Modern Horizons 2, Electric Boogaloo. Let's just try and not fuck it up again. I don't even play Modern, and I felt so bad for those guys.
Yeah. They had so many exciting cards like Urza and Yorgmoth. I'm big hype for that. I'm not sure what they'll have left after Legends in terms of anything that wasn't in Legends. I swear you can rest assured that they'll end up being in Modern Horizons. If they don't, for example, print Gix in Commander Legends, not only are they idiots for not doing so because it seems like something that people really, really want, but then I could imagine them putting that in Modern Horizons instead. Just less Ren and Sixes and Urzas and more. I don't even know. I'm trying to think of a fair, good card that was in that set. And I'm struggling.
Chiller Pillar.
Sure. Is that good? Or is it just fair?
I just like the artwork on it, I think.
Okay, right. Good. That's fair,
actually. Isn't Helmig did a great job on that one. What's another one? What was the Seth McKinnon one? Soul...
something. Soul Herder. Yeah, okay, that's very cool. Yeah, okay, fair enough. You did it. You found one that I think is fair and reasonable. But yeah, so yeah, again, like it's good that they're adding to the format. We don't play the format so much. There's only so much we can have an opinion on that. But at the end of the day, there'll probably be some cool stuff, and I think they've probably learned a few lessons from the first time. I think it's good they keep trying to shake up the less eternal formats and the rotating formats that are outside of standings. I think it's a nice way to keep everything, shaken up, even if you do occasionally print an astrolabe and fuck everything up.
Yeah, true. And then lastly, just as we to wrap up this episode, this might be another half an hour talking about this shit. Hope it's not. Innistrad werewolves and Innistrad vampires.
Yeah.
2 separate sets, and that's confirmed, well, at least as far as the Gamepedia is concerned, because on Gamepedia, werewolves is the 88th expansion set, and vampires is the 89th expansion set. Okay.
Yeah,
what?
And they're specifically paired up as well, which is interesting. I also like the fact that they've got the same set development code name. So clearly they were developed as a set. The fact they're paired, again, like how the fact that they have generic names as well, I feel like gives away more information than not, because I feel like it makes them feel so flip side of the coin that there must be some relation to the two sets direct again. But beyond that, I'm not
Do
entirely
we
sure what we
think
can glean.
maybe? Do we think that this is going to be like a mainline jumpstart set? So that
Okay, yeah.
so that you maybe if you open up a booster box, every booster box is guaranteed to have like 17 werewolf packs and 17 vampire packs, and you either pick them up apart, you put them together. The standard will have both of them in at the same time, so they're not two like 300 card sets. They're two 150 card sets
Right, yeah,
that
yeah.
can play together, but they're drafted separately or against
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, because they
You
say
know?
specifically that the standard rotation will still only be 4 sets. So if these are two sides of the same set, that would make sense because it would still be the same amount of cards coming in and out of the card pool. It does also say that Innistrad Vampires, Innistrad Werewolves are provisional names, which might mean that the names they'll eventually give them give away something about the products or something about the story that kind of they don't want to show you yet. Because this is the last set. This is like the fourth quarter, of 2021. We're not even really in the fourth quarter of 2020 yet. So this is over 12 months away. So I can understand why they might want to be a bit more coveted about giving too much information away. But doing that split aspect creates enough buzz for everyone to be like, well, that's interesting. What could they do? And, what can we pick apart from it? I love that the only information we have about either set is that Innistrad Vampires, there will be a wedding. That's great.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, so maybe it's a focus around like the courts of Innistrad for vampires, and then it'll be a focus around the wilds of for the werewolves. So a little bit like Eldraine, but they've because imagine if they did this with Eldraine, of where they had Eldraine the courts and Eldraine the wilds. Because it did feel almost like they did those, because maybe they'd learnt this as well from Eldraine. They realised, we tried to do two half sets and meld them together. And even though it did work as a whole set together, it did very much feel like a half and half thing. And maybe they went, next time when we do this, okay, yeah, it's on the same plane, but let's separate out those two things so we don't have to have the set interact between each other cohesively as well as within their own little bubbles. I could see that being the reason why they've had to do this, because they did want to create, two distinctive sides to the plane, but they still needed them to feel synonymous with each other. The only way to do it was kind of split the set mechanics between the two.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea what their process is. Obviously, we know very little about it. You know what the wedding's going to be, don't you? It's going to be Soren Markov and Livin Voldurin.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Or Runo. Can we just get the Stromkirk fucking nobleman? Can we just get him? Can we just get his?
Well, I mean, I would say that he's going to be in Commander Legends, but do you know what this set being at the end of quarter 4 tells me? And one of them's werewolves, and one of them's vampires. It means that there's not going to be a fucking werewolf commander in Commander Legends.
But it means that if there isn't one by the end of next year, you have absolutely every right to riot. Okay, if rioting is allowed by then, it'll probably be outlawed by then with the current trend of things. But
I don't know if there's a word in like. The German language is very good at this, of having words for like very sort of nuanced, abstract feelings in humans.
Like Schadenfreude and stuff like that.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a German word for the roller coaster of emotions go on when you're so elated but disappointed at the same time.
There definitely is a German word for that. I have no idea what it is, but it's got to be.
Please leave in the comments below what the German word is for yeah, like
Exactly. I know. Yeah.
Because
if you don't, you've got to get your werewolf commander by then, surely.
I can't believe it. The fact that I saw it and I went, oh yay, oh my god, they're doing werewolves and vampires in quarter 4. Bollocks. Yeah.
I also think there's a chance that neither of these sets will have anything to do with picking up the Emrakul story thread, which I think is probably good. Again, I want that to be kind of like the Bolas thing of where can we just leave that? Like how Bolas got left for like a good 10, 15 years before he came back for Conflux. Can we just do that again? Just leave Emrakul until we suddenly need to go, have we got any big bads left? Oh god, yeah, she's in the moon. Yeah, let's do something about that. I think that would be. I hope that they don't, go back into doing a big arc for it. I hope they do keep these little bubble stories. But yeah, every single set has got something interesting that I look at and I'm like, ooh, and that was. I don't know why I'm just making the same noise over and over again. That was essentially what my eyes did left to right. I was like, cow time. Oh, Strixhaven. Wait, they're doing a Dungeons and Dragons set. Wait, 2 Innistrad set? Yeah, and that kind of like wait, what? As they're kind of like bitch slapping you about with information was quite it was quite fun and enjoyable.
Yeah,
again, I don't care about the ancillary as much, but I never have. Not to say I don't indulge in them, but I mean, yeah, it's not quite as interesting.
It's not quite what we're here for. Except like Modern Horizons 2 will have some interesting characters that will get some cards. But obviously there'll be very little narrative drive behind that, so that's fine.
Mm.
And yeah, that's the year. It does look pretty stacked. I'm pretty excited. I mean, I'm kind of excited for everything. Like this seems like we've kind of come out of the dip and are kind of on the up and up. As long as Wizards of the Coast as a company can kind of get their shit together now, I think we're going to be entering a slightly better period. I've said this before. This is going to be our 40th episode, and I remember in like our first sort of 10 episodes that we were saying things like, "Oh, the ebooks are going to be great." Wah wah.
It's only a casual half year ago of being disappointed. Yeah, great.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope this isn't another one of those times, because I'm not. I mean, This is now not even like a prediction. This is just my like sort of flimsy on the wind hope that we're going to be coming out into a better time for Magic, because yeah, it's just been tough, and even all the good stuff, even the good stuff has been
peppered with a bit of salt.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it is. So I kind of hope that we're coming out of that now. But we will see. I'm sure the Wizards of the Coast will find one way or another to colossally fuck themselves over in the next sort of 12 months or so.
Well, if the world doesn't do it for them, of course,
Oh, Christ, yeah. Well, we're never going to be playing Magic in person again. Like, in the UK, we're staring down the barrel of a second lockdown.
Yeah, it's fine. At least I've got my Magic cards. At least I've got my Magic cards.
Yeah, it's my birthday tomorrow. So by the time that you listen to this, I will be 30 years old. And yeah, my sort of seeing social distancing friends thing, which I'm doing tomorrow, I won't even be able to do that on Monday. So yes, it's a tricky old time.
Yeah.
But there we are.
Plenty of good to look forward to, so it's fine. Yes. Magic Fiction's back. We've got great sets coming out. We haven't even properly looked into Commander Legends yet. That's going to be we've got so much to look forward to, Andy. It's going to be a great Christmas.
Yay. All right. I agree. Guys, if you think it's going to be a great Christmas or whatever winter holiday you celebrate, then let us know on Twitter at mtflavouring. You can send us emails about it, mtflavouring@gmail.com. My personal Twitter is at AndyManface. Nathan's, yours is
at the Fox in the Moon.
And yeah, do you have any final thoughts for this episode?
Yeah, that kind of got me. I did my Christmas thing. That's kind of as final as a thought as I can have for September. So
yeah. Yeah, and if I could just leave you one thing, guys, it's what we said earlier in the episode. There's always a positive to being positive about your fandoms, and being positive about your fandoms also leads to better critical thinking about them. So try not to be too glum all the time. Every once in a while, have a little look and see what you like about the things that you like, because it'll do wonders for you, both inside and out, I promise. Other than that, thank you so much for listening. This has been Magic the Flavouring.
We'll see you soon.